The galaxy was quiet, too quiet. For centuries, the mighty Galactic Empire had ruled everything that floated between the stars. Its flag flew on every planet, every moon, and every station that dared to exist. People bowed when the Empire's symbol appeared on their screens. It was a rule built on fear, power, and endless control. No one questioned it. No one dared to fight. Every time a small rebellion started, it was crushed before the first gun could even be fired. The Empire believed it was eternal, perfect, and invincible. To its leaders, the universe was already conquered. Far beyond the Empire's heart, on the very edges of mapped space, was the Orion Rift, a dark region of swirling dust, dying stars, and forgotten ruins. Imperial ships rarely went there. The rift was considered cursed. It was said that strange signals echoed from it, signals no one could trace or understand. Most scientists ignored those whispers, calling them old background noise or artifacts from the early days of exploration. But one day, deep within the rift, a small Imperial relay station caught something strange, a signal faint but clear. At first, the technicians thought it was an error. Static, maybe. But when they cleaned the data, their hearts froze. The signal carried an ancient digital pattern, one that matched the archives of extinct civilizations. And in its final packet of data, a language appeared. It was human. Humans were just a myth in the Empire. They were said to be a primitive species that had destroyed itself thousands of years ago, long before the Empire rose. Textbooks called them the Lost Race. Some said they had never even existed, just an old legend created by wanderers. The Empire never bothered to verify the truth, but that signal told a different story. It came from deep space, from coordinates where no human world should exist. The commander of the station reported it to Central Command. The message was short. Possible ancient transmission detected. Origin unknown. Language match Terran, then silence. 2 hours later, the entire station went offline. When the Empire sent a patrol ship to investigate, all they found was debris, metal fragments floating in the dark, as if the station had been torn apart from the inside. There were no survivors, no logs, no sign of a battle. It was as if something had erased it from existence. Rumors began to spread quietly among the fleet. Pilots whispered about the ghost signal. Some said it was a warning. Others said it was a weapon. The Empire's scientists, always confident and logical, tried to calm the panic. They claimed it was a natural event, a magnetic surge, maybe an ancient satellite exploding. But no one truly believed them. Something about that human signal made everyone uneasy. On the capital world of Serath Prime, the Emperor's Council gathered in a golden chamber to discuss the event. The Empire's intelligence chief presented his findings. He projected the decoded part of the signal into the air. It was short, only 5 words spoken in an old human language. "We are not gone yet." The room fell silent. Even the Emperor, a man who had ordered the destruction of entire planets without emotion, leaned forward in his throne. "Are you suggesting that humans survived?" he asked slowly. The intelligence chief hesitated. "We don't know, Your Majesty, but it seems to be a live transmission, not a recording." The Emperor dismissed it with a wave of his jeweled hand. Superstition. Some old machine drifting in the dark. But deep down even he could feel it, a strange sense of unease. Because if humans had truly survived, it would mean something terrifying. It would mean that there was a power out there that had escaped the Empire's reach. Weeks passed, and the Empire continued its expansion. Fleets were dispatched to conquer new sectors, while slave ships carried resources back to the core worlds. The signal was slowly forgotten, until another incident occurred. This time it was not a small outpost. It was an entire mining colony. The colony of Varel 9 sent a distress call. The message was filled with panic and static, but one phrase was repeated over and over. It came out of nowhere. A shadow in the stars. When the signal cut off, the Empire sent 3 destroyers to investigate. They found the planet silent. Millions of miners gone. The mining equipment still running. No signs of a fight, no explosions, no survivors. But in orbit, drifting among the wreckage, was something no one could explain. A piece of metal unlike any known design. It bore ancient lettering almost erased by time. When cleaned and translated, it read, "United Earth Navy." The discovery sent waves of panic through the military. The words Earth and Navy were old terms from human mythology, but here they were, real, carved into steel that should not exist. The metal was tested. It was impossibly strong, beyond anything the Empire had ever created. Scientists couldn't cut it, couldn't melt it. It was as if the material itself refused to die. The Emperor ordered all evidence to be classified. The story was buried, and the witnesses reassigned to distant sectors. But secrets have a way of spreading. Soldiers spoke in whispers. Traders shared rumors in spaceports. Some said they saw a massive ship moving silently through the stars, black as night, its engines burning blue like ghosts. Others claimed it had no crew, only a cold intelligence guiding it. Across the galaxy, unease began to grow. The Empire had always believed it was the only power that mattered. But now something unknown was out there. Something that had survived when every other civilization had fallen. And worst of all, it was human. In the following months, the number of missing ships increased. Patrols near the Orion Rift started reporting strange sensor readings, flickers of energy, shapes that appeared and vanished in seconds. Some captains refused to go near the rift, calling it cursed. The Empire punished them for cowardice, but fear spread faster than any command. In one of the Empire's academies, a young cadet read an old archive about the Terran species. According to the records, humans were warlike, adaptable, and impossible to control. They had fought among themselves for centuries, yet they always rose again. The more he read, the more he understood why the Empire feared them. If even a single human warship still existed, it could be a nightmare reborn. One night, far beyond the edges of mapped space, a merchant convoy picked up a faint transmission. It wasn't Imperial code. It wasn't pirate chatter. It was an old human voice saying, "Unidentified vessels, you are entering restricted space." Then a blinding light appeared from the darkness. The convoy's sensors failed, and when they came back online, one of their ships was gone, erased completely. By the time word reached the Empire, panic had turned into obsession. The military began scanning every sector near the rift. Dozens of fleets were diverted to search for the ghost ship, but no one could find it. It always appeared when least expected, destroyed anything that crossed its path, then disappeared into the dark again. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt something it had forgotten. Fear. Not of rebellion, not of aliens, but of a single word echoing from humanity's past: Earth. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor stood before a massive window, staring into the stars. Somewhere out there, he thought, something was watching them. Something old, something angry. The Empire's scientists called it superstition. The admirals called it a hoax, but he knew better. The Empire had built its throne on the ruins of others, and now perhaps one of those ruins had come back to claim what was stolen. The signal that had started it all was still being decoded. Every time the data team got closer, new lines appeared in the message as if it were rewriting itself. One of the technicians swore that hidden deep inside the code were coordinates, a place that didn't exist on any Imperial chart. He wanted to report it, but before he could, he vanished. His workstation was wiped clean and his ship records deleted. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the Orion Rift, a shape moved slowly, massive, silent, unstoppable. A warship that didn't belong to any known fleet. Its hull bore scars from ancient battles, and its name was etched deep into the metal: UNS Vengeance. The Empire didn't know it yet, but its age of peace was over. The storm was coming, and this time it wasn't another rebellion or alien uprising. It was something far worse, something that had been forgotten, waiting for the right moment to return. The galaxy was quiet, but not peaceful anymore. It was the silence before a war that would change everything. The kind of silence that comes before thunder. The kind of silence that hides the sound of an old power awakening. And somewhere in that silence, Earth was watching. The Imperial frigate Valentis drifted silently through the darkness of the Orion Rift. It was a huge warship, its surface covered with heavy armor and glowing red lights. Inside, hundreds of soldiers and officers went about their duties, unaware that they were about to witness something that would change the galaxy forever. Their mission was simple: to investigate strange energy readings that had appeared near the edge of mapped space. Many thought it was a technical glitch. Some joked that they were chasing ghosts, but deep down everyone on the ship felt uneasy. The rift had a bad reputation. It was the kind of place where ships entered and never came back. The commander of the Valentes, Captain Dareth, stood at the viewing deck staring into the endless black. His crew had been scanning the same region for hours, finding nothing but debris and cold stars. He was about to order a return to base when the ship's sensors beeped. A small flickering contact appeared on the radar, faint, distant, but real. Dareth frowned and ordered the sensor officer to magnify. The crew leaned forward as the image appeared on the main screen. At first it looked like a distortion. Something large was forming in the middle of empty space. Then out of nowhere, a massive shape emerged. It wasn't using hyperspace engines or known jump drives. It was simply there, appearing like a ghost stepping out of the dark. The ship was enormous, far larger than anything the Empire had built. Its surface was metallic gray, smooth, and without the usual spikes or markings that Imperial ships carried. Along its hull were strange letters, bold, ancient, and unfamiliar to most of the crew. But one of the officers gasped softly and whispered, "That's human writing." The camera zoomed in and the words became clear. United Earth Navy. For a long moment, no one spoke. The bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Captain Dareth narrowed his eyes. "Open a channel," he said. Static filled the speakers for a few seconds. Then a voice, calm, deep, and human, came through. "Unidentified vessels, you are trespassing in Terran space. Power down your weapons and leave immediately." The crew stared at each other in disbelief. The translator confirmed the message twice. It was English, the ancient human language. "Terran space?" one officer muttered. "That's impossible. Humanity is extinct." The captain ordered a response. "This is Captain Dareth of the Galactic Empire. Identify yourself," but there was no reply. The strange ship just floated there, quiet and still. Then the sensors started going wild. Energy readings spiked. Whatever that ship was, it was charging something powerful. The Valentes weapons officer shouted, "Energy surge detected. It's targeting us." Captain Dareth barked, "Evasive maneuvers." But it was too late. A blinding light flashed across space, followed by a soundless explosion. The first shot tore through one of the escort cruisers, cutting it in half. The second shot hit another, reducing it to dust. The railgun slug had traveled faster than the eye could see, carrying the force of a small sun. Within seconds, 3 Imperial ships were gone. The entire fleet froze in shock. The bridge filled with alarms and shouts. "It's just one ship," someone cried. "How can it have that kind of firepower?" Dareth clenched his fists. "Return fire!" Dozens of plasma cannons lit up the darkness, firing at the mysterious vessel. The shots hit, but they did nothing. The human ship's shields absorbed everything as if the attacks were nothing but raindrops. Then the human ship fired again, just once, and another Imperial cruiser exploded. Panic spread among the crew. Dareth knew he was facing something beyond comprehension. "Signal command," he ordered. "Tell them we've made contact with the Terran warship." Back at Imperial Central Command, the report caused chaos. Generals and admirals gathered around holographic displays, replaying the battle footage again and again. The image of the massive gray ship appeared before them, its name shining clearly. UN's Vengeance. The Emperor himself demanded updates every minute. "How can this be possible?" he asked, his voice sharp with anger. "Humanity was destroyed before our ancestors took to the stars." The science minister shook his head. "Apparently not, Your Majesty. They survived, and they've been building." The Emperor stared at the projection. The Vengeance looked ancient yet perfect, a relic from another age that still carried unmatched power. Back in the rift, the Valentes was barely holding together. The fleet had stopped attacking. They realized that firing only invited destruction. The Terran ship did not move closer, nor did it pursue. It simply hovered there, silent and cold like a watchful guardian. Then a second message came through. "This is your final warning. Leave this sector immediately." Dareth didn't hesitate. He gave the order to retreat. The Imperial ships turned and jumped to hyperspace, vanishing from the rift like frightened animals. Behind them, the Vengeance remained motionless, its engines glowing faintly blue, its cannons still aimed but no longer firing. When the fleet returned to Imperial space, the story spread like wildfire. Officers who had seen the human ship spoke in hushed voices. They said it didn't just look powerful. It felt alive, as if it were watching them, studying them. Some even claimed they heard faint whispers through their comms, words they couldn't understand but that made their hearts race with fear. The Empire tried to suppress the rumors, but word always found its way out. On the outer colonies, people began talking about the return of Earth, the lost homeworld that was now sending ghosts to the stars. In the Imperial Senate, debate raged for days. Some officials demanded a full-scale military response to destroy the human ship. Others warned against it, saying that provoking such a power could lead to the Empire's downfall. One senator stood and said, "If one human ship can destroy 3 of our cruisers in minutes, what happens if there are more?" The chamber went silent. No one wanted to imagine it. Meanwhile, deep in a hidden command center, the Emperor watched the footage again. The destruction of the Imperial ships, the calm voice giving a warning, the symbol of Earth glowing faintly on the ship's hull. He clenched his hands and whispered, "Find them. Find every trace of their world." The Empire's intelligence networks were activated across the galaxy. Agents searched for any sign of human activity, old signals, ancient ruins, forgotten colonies. But they found nothing. The Vengeance had disappeared again, leaving behind only the wreckage of Imperial pride. For the next several weeks, reports came in from different sectors. Merchant vessels claimed to see a gray shadow moving through space. Pirates disappeared without a trace near the rift. Even some Imperial patrols went silent. Every time investigators arrived, they found the same thing: empty space and debris. It was as if something was quietly erasing any threat it encountered. One officer, shaken and pale, told his superior, "It's like they're cleaning their territory." His report was classified and buried. In the dark corners of the galaxy, fear took root. The Empire had ruled through terror, but now it was the one trembling. The name Earth began to spread in whispers. Some said it was a ghost story to frighten soldiers. Others believed it was divine punishment, a forgotten species returning to balance the scales. But those who had seen the Vengeance with their own eyes knew the truth. Humanity was not extinct. They were out there, watching, waiting, and protecting something no one else understood. Captain Dareth never forgot what he saw that day. Every night he dreamed of that ship, the silent giant appearing out of nowhere, its guns glowing like the eyes of a sleeping beast. He remembered the voice that warned them, calm and firm, as if speaking from the depths of time itself. It wasn't a threat, he realized later. It was a promise that the humans still guarded their space, even after the galaxy had forgotten them. In the months that followed, the Imperial fleet increased patrols near the Orion Rift. They sent larger ships, stronger weapons, and better scanners. But none of it mattered. Whenever an Imperial ship tried to enter too deep into the rift, it vanished. The few that returned spoke of strange distortions, ghostly blue lights, and the same warning message echoing through their systems. The Empire labeled the entire region off limits, calling it Sector Zero, restricted by Imperial decree. Yet the fear lingered. No one wanted to patrol near it. No one wanted to hear that voice again. The Emperor refused to admit defeat, but in his heart he knew the truth. For centuries, his empire had believed it was the most powerful force in existence. But now, one forgotten warship from a long-lost world had shattered that illusion. The appearance of the Vengeance was more than a battle. It was a reminder. Humanity had returned to the stars, and they were not the prey anymore. They were the storm. And somewhere in the endless dark, beyond the reach of any empire or law, the UNS Vengeance drifted silently once more. Its engines glowed faintly as it disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind only the echo of a voice that the Empire would never forget. Unidentified vessels, you are trespassing in Terran space. News about the strange warship spread faster than light. Every corner of the Empire heard whispers of the ghost from Earth. What began as a rumor among frightened soldiers soon became a story told in every mining colony, every trade port, and every dark corner of space. People spoke of a single ship that had appeared out of nowhere, destroyed an Imperial fleet, and then vanished without a trace. No one could understand how it was possible. The Empire had faced rebellions, alien uprisings, and even rogue AI fleets, but this was different. This was something ancient, something that should not exist. The Empire tried to control the story. The Emperor ordered all official channels to deny any human contact. The destruction of the Imperial fleet was blamed on pirates or an experimental weapon gone wrong. But people weren't fools. The survivors from the Valentis and other ships told their stories in secret. They described the human warship in detail, Its smooth gray armor, its calm voice, and the way it fired only when provoked. Soldiers began calling it the vengeance of Earth. To the Empire's citizens, it became a legend. To the Emperor, it became a nightmare. In the crowded marketplaces of the outer colonies, traders whispered the tale as they passed through smoky bars and neon-lit docks. They say it came out of thin air, one would say. A ghost ship older than the Empire itself. Others swore they saw the ship with their own eyes, a massive shadow in the stars, silent and cold. Even the criminal networks began to fear the Orion Rift. Smugglers who entered never returned. Pirates avoided the area completely. It was as if an invisible guardian was protecting that space. Meanwhile, inside the imperial capital, chaos grew. The military wanted revenge. Admirals demanded to send larger fleets to crush the mysterious ship and prove the Empire's strength. But the scientists warned that they had no idea what they were dealing with. "This is not a new enemy," one scientist said during a secret council meeting. "It's an old one, maybe the oldest of all." He showed the council fragments of the hull recovered from the destroyed ships. The energy signatures were like nothing they had ever seen. "This isn't technology we can replicate," he said quietly. "This is human technology, and it's centuries ahead of ours." The Emperor refused to believe it at first, but the evidence was undeniable. The more they studied, the clearer it became. Humanity had not died. They had simply disappeared, and now they were back. But what did they want? That question haunted every Imperial officer. The humans hadn't tried to conquer or invade. They hadn't sent demands or messages. They simply protected a certain region of space. The same region the Empire had recently begun to mine for resources. For ordinary people across the galaxy, the humans became heroes. Many had suffered under the Empire's harsh rule. Entire planets were enslaved for mining or forced labor. When they heard of a ship that defied the Empire and survived, hope was reborn. On distant worlds, rebels painted old Earth symbols on walls. "The Terrans have returned," they said. "Maybe freedom will follow." Some even began sending distress signals into the void, hoping the mysterious human ship would come to save them. And sometimes it did. In one mining sector, an Imperial governor ordered the execution of hundreds of workers for a small rebellion. As his ships prepared to leave orbit, their scanners detected something. A strange energy pulse behind the moon. Within seconds, the UNS Vengeance appeared. The Imperial ships opened fire out of panic, but every shot was absorbed. The human ship didn't answer their hails. It simply released a single blast of energy that disabled every Imperial vessel in orbit. Then a message echoed across the channels, calm, cold, and unmistakably human. "Stop hurting the innocent." The transmission ended. When the Empire sent reinforcements days later, the human ship was gone, but the slaves were free. This story spread like wildfire. To the oppressed, the vengeance became a symbol of justice. To the rulers, it was a symbol of terror. The Emperor's advisors begged him to act before the myth turned into rebellion. But how could he fight an enemy that appeared and disappeared like smoke? He grew more paranoid every day. He ordered fleets to patrol the edges of known space, and he ordered anyone who spoke of Earth to be silenced. But the more the Empire tried to hide the truth, the more powerful the legend became. Every week, new sightings were reported. Some were false, born from fear and imagination, but some were real. Ships destroyed without warning, communication lines cut, outposts wiped out overnight, and always the survivors reported the same phrase: "This is Terran space." In the Imperial academies, cadets began studying human history again, secretly. They found old texts and records that described humanity as fierce, emotional, and unstoppable. "They fight like they breathe," one ancient quote said. "Even when they lose, they never stop." For many young officers, this inspired both fear and respect. The thought that such beings had returned made them question everything they had been taught about the Empire's supremacy. In distant sectors, alien civilizations that had once bowed to the Empire began to stir. The rumor of the human warship gave them courage. "If the humans can fight back," they said, "why can't we?" The Empire suddenly found itself facing uprisings on worlds that had been loyal for generations. The Emperor blamed the humans for spreading chaos, though no one had proof that the vengeance was involved. It didn't matter. The fear alone was enough to shake the Empire's foundations. Inside the secret chambers of the Imperial Palace, the Emperor met with his closest counselors. "This cannot continue," he said. "One ship cannot undo centuries of order." But even he sounded unsure. His intelligence chief hesitated before speaking. Your Majesty, there may be more than one ship. The Emperor turned slowly. What do you mean? We intercepted long-range energy signatures, the chief replied. They match the readings of the human vessel, but from different systems. It's possible we're not dealing with a single warship. It may be a fleet. The Emperor's heart sank. He dismissed the meeting without another word. Alone in his chamber, he looked at a map of the galaxy, its sectors glowing with Imperial control. Then, in the corner of the map near the Orion Rift, a small section blinked red. Unknown contact detected. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. Meanwhile, across the stars, small groups of humans in hiding began to appear. Some were stranded explorers, others descendants of the old Terran colonies that had gone silent centuries ago. They spoke of a hidden command, a fleet that had never stopped guarding the outer systems. The UNS Vengeance was not alone. It was part of something greater, a hidden defense network that had been watching from the shadows for generations, waiting for the right time to reveal itself. But to most of the galaxy, it was still just a legend. Merchants told stories of blue light streaking across the void. Children played games pretending to be captains of the Earth Navy. Even soldiers began to whisper before battles, saying, "If the Terrans are real, may they forgive us." The Emperor finally addressed his people through a grand broadcast. His voice echoed across thousands of worlds. He called the human ship a terrorist illusion, a trick created by enemies of the Empire. "There are no Terrans," he declared. "There is only the Empire, eternal and unbroken." But even as he spoke, his generals exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen the footage. They had heard the warning. And they knew the truth. Somewhere beyond the edge of Imperial control, the UNS Vengeance continued its silent journey. It never announced itself, never sought attention. It appeared only when needed, striking with precision, protecting the weak, and vanishing before the Empire could react. To those it saved, it was a miracle. To those it destroyed, it was judgment. Among the slaves who escaped from Imperial worlds, songs began to spread. Old Earth melodies carried across space. They sang of blue oceans, green fields, and skies free from tyranny. They believed the humans had returned not to conquer, but to remind the galaxy of what freedom meant. The Empire, however, saw it differently. Every appearance of the Vengeance weakened their control. Every whisper of Earth was like a spark, lighting fires of rebellion across the stars. The Emperor ordered the creation of a special division, the Silent Guard, whose only mission was to hunt and destroy the human warship. They never succeeded. Every time they came close, the ship vanished. Every time they set a trap, the trap was destroyed before it could even be sprung. And so the myth became something greater than the truth. People no longer feared the Empire's might as they once had. They feared the humans more. But in that fear, they found hope. Hope that one day the Empire could fall. In the dark halls of his palace, the Emperor stood once again before the great window, staring into the stars. He whispered to himself, "What are you, Terrans? Ghosts, gods, or the future coming to destroy the past?" But the stars gave no answer. Only silence, deep, endless silence. Far away, the UNS Vengeance glided past a dying sun. Its engines pulsed softly, reflecting off the broken fragments of an old satellite. Inside, its crew watched in silence as transmissions from the Empire played across the screens. Lies, threats, and desperate denials. One of the human officers looked at his captain. "They're scared," he said quietly. The captain nodded. "Good," he replied. "Maybe they should be." And as the ship disappeared once more into the endless black, the galaxy continued to whisper the same name: Earth. The Empire had reached its breaking point. Fear had turned into anger, and anger into obsession. The Emperor could no longer tolerate the shadow of a single human warship haunting his rule. For months he had been mocked in secret by his own senators, whispered about by generals who questioned his strength. The name UNS Vengeance had become a curse across the stars, a ghost story that made even the bravest soldiers hesitate before entering the Orion Rift. The Emperor decided it was time to end the legend once and for all. Orders were sent across the galaxy. Every available ship was to assemble at the edge of the Orion Rift. Thousands of cruisers, dreadnoughts, and battleships gathered, forming the largest armada in Imperial history. 2,000 warships, tens of thousands of fighters, and millions of soldiers waited in silence. The plan was simple: surround the rift, trap the human ship, and destroy it completely. The Emperor himself oversaw the operation from his golden war room on Sarath Prime. He watched the holographic displays as the Imperial fleet moved into position, stretching across light years like a shining wall of steel. "No more ghosts," he said coldly. "We will burn the past out of existence." In the command ship Dominus Rex, Admiral Kor led the operation. He was a proud man, a veteran of countless wars, and he didn't believe in old myths. But even he felt uneasy as his ships approached the rift. The space ahead looked wrong, darker than usual, as if the stars themselves refused to shine there. "Begin the sweep," Kor ordered. Hundreds of probes shot forward, scanning for any trace of the Terran ship. The sensors picked up nothing, just silence. Some officers began to relax, thinking it was all an exaggeration. "Maybe it was just one old ship," someone said. "Maybe it's gone." Then the scanners flickered. For a brief moment something appeared, a faint signature in the distance. A ship alone. "There it is," Kor said with a grim smile. So the ghost finally shows itself. The fleet formed attack formations. Fighters launched from their carriers, engines glowing bright. The Admiral opened a channel and announced loudly, "This is the Imperial fleet. You are surrounded. Power down your systems and surrender." No reply came. The Terran ship just floated there, motionless, facing the endless wall of Imperial ships. Its hull was dark and silent, its engines barely glowing. On the bridge of the Dominus Rex, officers waited for an answer that never came. Then suddenly, every Imperial ship's sensors went white. Massive energy spike detected. Someone shouted. The Vengeance was powering up. The first shot came without warning. A single railgun slug, invisible to the naked eye, tore through space and hit one of the Imperial destroyers. The ship didn't explode. It vanished, atomized by the impact. Then another shot and another. Within seconds, entire squadrons were gone. The Imperial fleet responded, firing everything it had. Plasma cannons, torpedoes, lasers, turning the space between them into a sea of fire. But the human ship moved like a ghost. Its shields absorbed the attacks, and every counterstrike hit perfectly, slicing through even the strongest armor. Admiral Kor shouted for his ships to regroup, but it was chaos. Thousands of voices screamed across comms. "We're losing power. Shields collapsing. They're everywhere." But there was only one ship attacking them. One ship fighting an entire armada and winning. The Admiral couldn't understand it. The Terran ship wasn't just strong, it was precise. Every hit crippled a key target. A carrier, a command ship, a communications hub. Within minutes, the entire Imperial battle network began to crumble. And then something unimaginable happened. The sky tore open. Behind the Vengeance, a distortion appeared, a blue glowing rift that expanded rapidly. From within, dozens of new ships emerged. Their designs were old, ancient even, but they were unmistakably human. Each bore the same markings: United Earth Navy. The Empire's greatest fear had come true. The humans had returned, not as a single survivor, but as a fleet. The UNS Vengeance was not alone. Panic erupted across the Imperial lines. "Multiple contacts! Hundreds of them!" The new ships spread out in formation, their weapons already locked. The human fleet opened fire in perfect coordination, unleashing a storm of energy and kinetic strikes that tore through the Imperial ranks like paper. The soundless void filled with blinding light as ship after ship exploded. The humans didn't speak, didn't demand surrender. They simply fought, swift, silent, and unstoppable. From his throne room on Sarath Prime, the Emperor watched the live feed in horror. He had expected a single target to destroy. Instead, he saw his proud fleet being annihilated in real time. "Impossible," he whispered. They were extinct. They were gone. His advisors stood frozen. The Emperor slammed his fist against the control panel. "Send reinforcements. All of them." But it was already too late. Out in the rift, the battle turned into a massacre. The human ships fought like predators that had been waiting for centuries. Their technology was older but deadlier, refined through wars that the Empire couldn't even imagine. Human railguns fired with pinpoint accuracy, and missiles traveled faster than light. The Imperial fleet, despite its massive numbers, couldn't keep up. Every time they tried to regroup, another squadron vanished in a blaze of blue light. Admiral Kor refused to retreat. "We are the Empire," he shouted over the comms. "We do not run." But before he could give another command, the Dominus Rex shuddered violently. The main screen flashed with warnings. The vengeance had locked onto them. In his final moments, Kor looked out the viewport and saw the human ship up close for the first time. A massive shadow with glowing blue lines across its hull, the words, UNS Vengeance, shining like fire. Then everything went white. When the light faded, the Imperial flagship was gone. The remaining ships broke formation and fled in every direction. Some tried to jump to hyperspace, but their engines failed. Others surrendered, sending distress signals that were never answered. In less than an hour, the mightiest fleet in Imperial history was reduced to debris and silence. The humans didn't chase the survivors. They let them run. They had made their point. As the last explosions faded, the human ships regrouped. Their formation was perfect, calm, almost peaceful. The Vengeance moved to the front, facing the wreckage. For a few moments, it simply hovered there, its engines humming quietly. Then a single transmission was sent across all Imperial frequencies. It was short and clear. This space is under Terran protection. Any further aggression will be met with total destruction. The voice was calm, almost emotionless, but its power was undeniable. Back on Serath Prime, the Emperor stood alone in silence. Around him, his advisors whispered in fear. He had no words left. The Empire had just lost 2,000 ships, and the humans hadn't even needed a full-scale war. It was over before it began. He realized with a cold chill running through his veins that the humans had not attacked to conquer. They had attacked to warn. The galaxy shook that day. Entire sectors went dark as Imperial command centers tried to hide the truth. But rumors couldn't be contained anymore. Survivors told their stories. Of the blue lights that came out of nowhere, of the human ships that fought like living machines, and of how the Empire's proudest fleet had been erased in a single battle. Across the colonies, people cheered in secret. To them, it wasn't the end of the Empire. It was the beginning of hope. In the following days, strange transmissions were picked up across the outer systems. They came from untraceable locations and carried the same message. We do not seek war, but cross our worlds again and you will cease to exist. Every Imperial ship that heard it fell silent. Some captains resigned, others refused to serve near the rift again. The Emperor had no choice but to declare the entire region forbidden. He called it a containment zone, but everyone knew the truth. It was fear. The humans did not pursue the retreating forces. They didn't demand peace treaties or tribute. They simply vanished back into the darkness. Their ships disappeared into hyperspace, their signals fading like ghosts. But the damage was done. The Empire had been humiliated, its power shattered. It had seen a glimpse of what true strength looked like, and it came from a species they had once dismissed as extinct. In the ruins of the battlefield, drifting among twisted metal and frozen bodies, pieces of Imperial ships floated silently. On one of those fragments, a damaged recording device flickered to life. It had captured the final moments of the battle, the Vengeance standing tall against thousands of ships alone but unbroken. The recording would later spread across the galaxy, shared in secret by rebels and freedom fighters. They called it the day Earth returned. The Empire tried to erase the memory, to rewrite history, to claim it was all a trick. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. The Empire had finally met something greater than itself. A power born not from domination, but from survival. Humanity had not come to destroy the galaxy. They had come to remind it what fear truly meant. And somewhere far beyond the reach of any empire, the UNS Vengeance drifted once again through the stars. Its captain stood silently at the window, watching the wreckage fade into the distance. "They'll come again," one officer said softly. The captain nodded. "Let them," he replied. "We'll be here." The ship's engines ignited and it disappeared into the void, leaving only a legend behind. A legend that the Empire would never forget. The day the humans returned and the galaxy trembled. After the great battle at the Orion Rift, silence spread across the galaxy. The Imperial armada that had once filled the skies was gone. Where thousands of ships once stood, there was now only drifting wreckage, broken metal, burned engines, and the cold remains of a defeated empire. The humans had vanished as suddenly as they appeared. No one knew where they went, and no one dared to find out. But before disappearing, the humans had sent a final message to the Imperial capital, a message that would echo across time. "We do not seek war, but cross our worlds again, and you will cease to exist." The message was short, but it carried a power that no superweapon could match. Every Imperial commander who heard it felt a chill run through their blood. For the first time in generations, the Empire felt fear, not the fear of rebellion or defeat, but the fear of something far older, something they could not control or understand. The Emperor himself received the message while standing in his grand war hall, surrounded by his council. The hologram flickered, showing a simple Terran symbol, the old Earth insignia, a blue planet surrounded by stars. The Emperor didn't speak for a long time. He just stared at the symbol, knowing it meant the return of an ancient power, one that had chosen peace but promised destruction if provoked. Across the Empire, the news spread like wildfire. Every surviving ship that had escaped the battle carried stories of the human warships, how they moved like ghosts, how their weapons tore through Imperial armor as if it were paper, and how they had shown mercy instead of finishing the slaughter. Some said the humans could have destroyed the entire Imperial fleet but chose not to. That made them even more terrifying. A power that could destroy everything but didn't. That was the kind of fear no empire could ever erase. The Emperor tried to hide the truth. He ordered all surviving officers to remain silent and executed those who disobeyed. He called the event a distortion accident, claiming that the fleet had been lost to a spatial anomaly. But the galaxy didn't believe him. Soldiers whispered in secret. Captains avoided patrols near the Orion Rift. Even merchants began changing their trade routes to stay far away from Terran space. The more the Empire tried to bury the truth, the stronger the legend became. Soon, the myth of Earth returned, not as a story of extinction but of vengeance and power. People began to imagine that the humans were still out there watching, waiting. In the outer colonies, where the Empire's control was weak, rebels and freedom fighters painted the old Earth insignia on their ships. To them, it wasn't just a warning to the Empire. It was hope. They believed that one day the humans would come back and finish what they started, breaking the chains of Imperial rule. The Emperor could feel his grip slipping. Sectors began declaring independence, claiming they no longer needed the Empire's protection. If Earth can defend itself, they said, then so can we. The Empire's armies, weakened and demoralized, couldn't fight back. Entire fleets deserted, their captains refusing to die for a cause that had already failed. For the first time in history, the Emperor saw his great empire begin to fracture, not because of invasion, but because of fear. In the years that followed, a new term spread through the galaxy, the Terran Shadow. It described a feeling that haunted every Imperial ship near uncharted space. Sometimes sensors would pick up faint signals, old Earth frequencies distorted but recognizable. Other times, Imperial scouts would find debris of pirate ships, perfectly sliced apart by railgun fire. No one ever saw who did it, but everyone knew. The Terrans are watching, they would whisper. Stay away from their space. Many believed the UNS Vengeance still roamed the galaxy, hidden among the stars. There were even stories of it appearing near dying colonies to drive off raiders, then disappearing again without a trace. People said it never stayed long, never spoke, but always left behind the same calling card, a faint blue light streaking across the void. Some said it was protecting lost human colonies. Others believed it was searching for something. Maybe the remnants of old Earth, maybe survivors, maybe revenge. Meanwhile, on Serath Prime, the Emperor aged quickly. His once proud voice grew weak, his eyes haunted by the memory of the battle he could never forget. In his private chambers, he would replay the footage of the battle again and again. The blue flashes, the Terran ships moving like hunters, and his fleet dying in silence. He couldn't sleep. In his dreams, he saw a blue planet rising behind him, its light consuming everything. He became paranoid, sending fleets to patrol the rift even though no one ever found anything. But every few years, a scout ship would vanish, never to return. It was enough to keep the fear alive. Over time, the Empire began to change. No longer arrogant, it became cautious. It reduced expansion, avoided war, and focused on rebuilding. But the damage was already done. The name Earth became forbidden in official records. To even speak of humans was treason, and yet the forbidden stories spread in secret. Children in distant colonies grew up hearing bedtime tales about the Ghost Fleet, brave humans who appeared from nowhere to punish tyrants. To them, Earth wasn't a memory. It was a promise. Decades passed and new rulers rose and fell. The emperor who once ordered the destruction of humanity died in fear, muttering about shadows in the stars. His successors never spoke of the incident, but every new emperor kept a private command. No imperial ship would ever enter the Orion Rift again. That region became a dead zone on all maps, surrounded by warning beacons that flashed endlessly. Restricted space, do not enter. No one ever questioned it. No one dared. But in the darkness beyond those beacons, something still moved. Deep within the rift, a massive ship drifted silently, the UNS Vengeance. Its hull was covered with scars from countless battles, but its engines glowed softly, steady as ever. Inside, the crew lived in quiet watchfulness. They had no empire, no colonies, and no orders from Earth, because Earth itself was long gone, destroyed in the wars that once ended human civilization. Yet their mission remained. They protected the legacy of their world. The captain of the Vengeance, a man named Commander Hale, often stood before the ship's viewing window, watching the stars. "Do you think they'll ever learn?" one of his officers asked once. Hale smiled faintly. "Empires never learn," he said, "but they always remember fear." "That's enough." The officer nodded and returned to his post. For them, the galaxy wasn't a home. It was a graveyard of civilizations that had grown too proud. Humanity had become its silent guardian, reminding others that arrogance always has a price. One day, a distress call reached the Vengeance. It came from a small mining colony being attacked by raiders. The humans responded instantly. Within hours, the raiders' ships were gone, erased from space. The colonists tried to thank them, but the Terran warship had already disappeared. Only the recording of its passing remained, a blue light streaking through the darkness. Word of this new sighting spread quickly. "They're still out there," people said. "The Earth warship still protects us." As time went on, the Vengeance became more than a legend. It became a symbol. Rebels painted its image on their ships. Merchants hung small replicas of it for protection. Even Imperial soldiers secretly prayed that it would never appear before them, because its arrival always meant judgment. The fear never faded, not even after centuries. The Empire tried to rebuild its fleets, but none dared to challenge the Terran space again. Some called it superstition, others called it wisdom. And so the UNS Vengeance continued its silent journey through the void, keeping watch over the galaxy that once tried to erase its kind. No one knew its true destination, or whether more human ships still existed somewhere beyond the stars. But everyone, even the proudest Imperial commander here, knew one truth. The humans had returned once, and they could return again. Out there, in the endless night, the ship drifted quietly, its blue lights pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Inside, the crew lived their endless duty, carrying the memory of a world that no longer existed but still mattered. To them, Earth wasn't just a planet. It was a promise that no empire, no matter how powerful, could ever rule forever. And so the legend endured. Every whisper, every story told across 1,000 worlds carried the same lesson. Fear the Terrans. Respect their silence and never ever forget the day when an Earth warship appeared out of nowhere and brought the Empire to its knees. Because even after centuries, when new empires would rise and fall, the shadow of Earth would remain, silent, patient, and eternal.